with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone while she talks. And if you have any questions that come up while she's talking, just click on the chat box on the bottom, and you'll type in your question, and I will capture those, and then I will ask those of her later in the session. All right, Nancy, anything else before we really get started?
No, let's just dive in. Welcome, everybody. I'm really thrilled for the opportunity to connect, grateful to Wellness Within and their sponsors just to make sure we're making this all work. So today, this is your time. I am a nutritionist who specializes in nutrition for cancer management. So feel free to ask any questions related to nutrition. You have 2 PowerPoint presentations with a whole lot of slides. My goal isn't to power through the slides, but to use them as a discussion point. So I will add information, but don't be upset with me if we don't get through all of the slides. I wanted to include the information so that you can go over it on your own. Because I included some immune system support because of the time that we're in. So you have 2 PowerPoint slides. Please review them on your own. And then I also gave you a series of recipes that I thought were seasonally appropriate. And these are actually ideas for you. And please modify them. That's what I always do. I gave you a recipe for watermelon cucumber refresher. It's basically blending up watermelon and cucumber. Maybe you just want to blend up the watermelon. Check it out. It really is quite tasty. A kale white beans salad. So what to do with all the kale that's coming out of the gardens now. And then a massage kale salad, which is kind of fun and an easier way to digest the kale, as well as some zucchini recipes, as easy zucchini saute, because if you have gardens or have family or friends with gardens, you're probably going to be inundated with zucchini. What to do with zucchini? Pretty versatile vegetable. And then I gave you a recipe for a cashew yogurt because I've been having a lot of fun making my own cultured foods. If any of you are not having dairy or reducing dairy, you can try having a cultured food that's with cashew yogurt. So let's dive in. If you didn't receive any of the handouts, please connect with Marilyn and she'll set you up. So there's a disclaimer saying that this information is coming from me. So what's our outline for today? I'm going to talk, I wish we were going to have a dialogue, but I'm going to present for about an hour. And then after that time, we will have your questions. So as you think of questions, type them in the chat box, and then Marilyn is going to send them over to me. She'll screen them and send them over to me, and then we'll address those. So this is basically what my goal is to go over with you today during our hour together. Safety during COVID-19, we do have that going on. That's first and foremost in our planning. So what's our self-care plan? What's your self-care plan? Which really is part of your cancer management plan, right? So your cancer management plan, what is under your control? So much of it is not under your control. Going through treatment and after treatment, worrying about preventing recurrence. So we want to focus on the basics of a cancer management plan. Number 1, breathe. It may seem a little basic, breathe. A lot of times if we're feeling worried and stressed, we find ourselves doing more shallow breathing and not doing that deep breathing that really nourishes and oxygenates. And so I'm talking about breathing as part of our plan, a little bit of reminder, and being hydrated, especially if it's hot up where you guys are, it's hot here. Hey, hydration is a foundation of your cancer management plan. Your body's mostly water. Dehydration is a big showstopper. And then thirdly, how can we be nutritionally strong when we are managing cancer and when we are in this heightened preventative mode of staying healthy to prevent a respiratory infection? And what is a plant-focused diet? So I didn't say a plant-based diet. What's a plant-focused diet? So that'll be the focus of our talk. And then I included some information on building immune strength and immune resilience, that ability to be able to bounce back, which is so important for managing cancer, but also important for just staying healthy and preventing any respiratory viruses. So safety, I won't spend a lot of time here. I'm sure that you're well aware that you're following your local guidelines. I like to say practice physical distancing because you do want to be socially connected. It just may be in a different way. So keeping your distance to prevent person-to-person spread, and wearing your mask, washing your hands, and the CDC is a good place for guidelines. And unfortunately, even though it's been 7 months and we were maybe hoping we'd be through it, we still need to take these kinds of precautions. So preventing transmission, preventing contagion is a goal for self-care. So here's our self-care circle. So what do we do? How do we take care of ourselves? I like to think about staying healthy is the best way to prevent disease. And they have found that people who get the most severe COVID-19 symptoms are people who were not maybe so healthy and had some comorbidities. So how can we keep ourselves really healthy and balanced and resilient? So number one in our left-hand circle is breathing. That's how we nourish. How do we nourish? We take in oxygen and we oxygenate all of our tissues. And guess what? Cancer hates oxygen. So oxygenating our tissues oxygenates our cells, and it actually gives us energy. So breathing, I like to recommend people wake up in the morning and take some cleansing deep breaths. And then before each meal, take some deep breaths. And then maybe at bedtime, taking some deep breaths. And you'll find that this tends to really help a lot to nourish that parasympathetic nervous system, that calming nervous system. And it helps digestion, helps digestive juices flow. And we'll talk a little bit more about a couple of techniques, because breathing is important for digestion. Digestion is important for absorbing and assimilating all the wonderful goodies from the foods, all those wonderful foods I'm going to talk about. And then the next one is eating. How do we nourish ourselves? We take in protein and fat and carbs and vitamins and minerals, and these all feed our 30 trillion baby bird cells. Drinking, hydration is critical since our bodies are mostly water. And then moving. We need to move the lymphatic fluid, and this is how we spread oxygen. This is how we stay energetic. This is how we keep our muscles strong. And at the top, we have love and we have connection, because we're social beings. How do we nourish ourselves? We take in love and we give love. We stay connected, and that helps us be more resilient. And in the middle, we have sleep, because we have to be getting sleep. And this can be challenging when we're worried or anxious, but sleep, you do the best you can to get to bed at 10 o'clock at night and sleep. That's where we do our deep healing. So what is a self-care routine? What is your self-care routine? What do you do when you wake up? When do you have your meals? When do you go to bed? And then is there room for improvement, or you think you got this down? So breathing, right? We talked about actually making it a part of your routine. You can combine it with some yoga exercises, do it at the beginning of a meal. Water, what is your routine? Are you drinking a glass of lemon water when you wake up in the morning? Are you having adequate water, about 2 quarts or 2 liters a day? Some, it doesn't have to be just water. It can be herb tea, can be broths. How are you with water? Some people find it helpful to keep a journal. The number one thing I hear when people decide they do want to keep a journal, and then we look at it and I say, well, what observations did you make? I hear frequently that I thought I drank so much water. I actually don't drink that much water. And then meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, drinks. How are you with these? You having meals routinely? Are you skipping meals? Are you having a lot at one meal? Like what's your eating routine? There is a lot of individuality, which we have to honor, but what sort of routine do we have for that, and how can we make it better? How can we make it cancer fighting, right? Shopping. Now, this is a weird time. Some of you, especially if you're in treatment, you may not be doing your own shopping. Someone may be shopping for you. So this adds another layer of complexity. What's your routine? Keeping a shopping list, having someone go to the store for you, or if you're going to the store, what's your game plan? What's your routine? Are you going shopping on certain days? Because when we add routine to our lives, it's comforting. It's a great way to manage stress and anxiety from uncertainty or from dealing with cancer. What's your exercise routine? You know, exercise makes everything better. What's your sleep routine? Do you need some help with that? Social connections. Are you being socially connected during this crazy time? Well, right now we're socially connected, so you're doing a good thing here, and I'm sure you're taking advantage of other classes. Maintaining activities, and then of course safety. So we do need to respect individual needs, whether you are in treatment. If you're in treatment, what kind of treatment? Are you having side effects, or you're post-treatment? So we're going to talk in generalities about nutrition, but we must honor our differences. And then if you are in treatment and it's like, I'm just not feeling good at all, so there's no way I'm going to have that arugula strawberry salad. I get that. You're going to do the best that you can. And then there's food preferences. I can say kale salad. You go, oh my God, that just sounds so horrible. I'm not going to have kale salad. Then you don't have to have kale salad. We'll find a substitute for you. And we honor that. Too many times I have people say, well, I'm having this because it's good for me. Kale's good for me. It's like, well, do you like it? And well, not really. Well, then it's not good for you. Let's find foods that are good for you, that you like, right? So what are your food preferences? Let's honor that and work with that. Constitution, the 4 C's. What did you come into the world with? Who are you genetically? Your condition. Do you have health challenges? Your diagnosis, your treatment? And we have to factor that in. And context is, are you shopping for yourself? Or your living arrangement? And then finally, commitment. Are you willing to make some changes? Because typically when we give nutrition talks, we talk about making changes. And that's something that some people say, no, I really don't want to. So we have to respect your preferences. So here's the slide on breathing. That these are just some ideas. Yoga teachers, cheat code teachers, they are wonderful at coaching you on ways to breathe. Andrew Weil, Dr. Andrew Weil has a 4-7-8, which is breathe in through your nose for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, breathe out for a count of 8. I've had several people say, Nancy, that's too long, the 7 and 8 one. I just do 4-4-4, or somebody does 5-5-5. They do 4-4-4 4 times when they wake up in the morning or before meals. You experiment with it. I gave you a link where you can check it out. There's a lot of YouTubes on how to do these types of techniques. There's also alternate nostril breathing. Yoga teachers will often coach you in that. And belly breathing, whatever type of breathing there is, whether it's part of your exercise, this is really part of your self-care program. And then be hydrated, because the optimal cellular function during cancer and cancer treatment, there are stresses. All your 30 million cells are going through a bit of a stress. Let's reassure your cells that everything is fine. Hydrate. Your brain is 85% water. If you are dehydrated, you can get fatigued, you can get anxious. Shame on you, because that's like a number 1 that's under your control. So again, this is a little reminder for self-care. Let's do a check-in. Am I adequately hydrated? Right? And so we need to be hydrated for immune strength, if you think about your oral mucosa, your mouth, there's saliva in there. The more saliva you have, the more immune function you have. You have secretory IgA, which is a special type of antibody that can actually zap incoming viruses and bacteria right away. So if you have dry saliva, that's not going to work as well. This is also where digestion begins, is in the mouth with chewing. So being hydrated, if you notice if you're dehydrated, you get you're dry. So it's like a sign, it's like a last resort sign. And feel free to drink water with lemon, or it doesn't have to be water. In fact, it shouldn't just be water. 2 quarts of plain water is really not going to have enough minerals. So you're going to want to have some lemon in there. Let me see if I can. Hold on a sec. I wanted to show you, this is what I do almost every day, is I have one of these pitchers and I fill it up with filtered water. I put some sliced lemon and sometimes some fresh mint. And I drink this all day. It's just a little bit more exciting and flavorful than plain water. Sometimes I'll take a water bottle, and I'll put like a Moroccan mint tea bag. It's a bit of a cold brew. I like to have a little bit of something in my water. You can get creative, right? So being hydrated. So this is, I gave you a recipe for a watermelon refresher, a watermelon cucumber blend. You could give it a go. I will tell you, it's good just for one day. It gets a little bit weird. So this is what watermelon is one of the best hydrating fruits because it's so many electrolytes, and watermelon is very high in lycopene, and lycopene is a major anti-cancer player. So get creative on how you want to hydrate. I've had people who are very ill, they've gone through treatment and they just are getting leg cramps and they're not feeling well. And I say, you know, it sounds like electrolytes are low. We'll be doing our fruit and our water, but sometimes actually get an electrolyte powder, an Oxylent or an Ultima. I'll say, put a packet of that in a glass of water, especially after you do a workout. See if that helps you out. Sometimes when you're on medications deplete magnesium and potassium. And I find a lot of people just don't feel well because their electrolytes were low. And if you're drinking a lot of water and you don't have electrolytes, you're diluting your electrolytes. Electrolytes are minerals, right? We get minerals from vegetable. So what's your favorite drink? This yellow box there. You decide, have fun, you know, see what you want to drink. Pineapple mint is pretty good if you have some fresh pineapple. Or what do you have? You know, watermelon, rosemary, put a little sprig of rosemary, just make it kind of interesting. And do know that adding in these fruits, you're actually adding in cancer fighting players. Like, for example, lemons and limes are very high in a compound called limonene. And limonene interacts with cancer processes to shut them down on many levels. So do berries, right? And even doing a cold brew is going to give you some nutritional benefit as well as just being delicious, right? And inviting. I mean, look at that raspberry lime. It's like, yeah, I want some of that. So being nutritionally strong. So we said breathing, hydrating. Now we're going to get to the nitty gritty about what's our nutrition, how are we eating. So the first checkbox is enjoy regular meals at regular times. So what we don't ever want to do is skip meals, like you know, have breakfast maybe at 10 and then not have anything until 7. But this is where the individuality comes in quite a bit. It really depends on you, what your blood sugar is like. If you're the kind of person that gets all anxious and dizzy, if you don't have anything to eat after 2 to 3 hours, then you need to eat every 2 to 3 hours, some protein and fat. If you're somebody with a slow metabolism, you're having a hard time losing weight, we're finding that people will often do better when they say do a meal, have their breakfast at 10 a.m., have their big meal at about 3 or 4 p.m., and then that's it. They're doing 2 meals a day. One thing that factors into here is intermittent fasting, meaning that at the very minimum, if you can, have dinner, say 5 or by the latest 7 o'clock, and then no calories until the next morning. So that would be no calories until at least 7 p.m. So you want to go 12 to 16 hours with no calories. What happens during that time is you get a cellular detox and you get a stimulation of the immune system. So there's a lot of work going on, a lot of research. You probably have heard about this down at USC. Walter, with a V, Longo, is doing the preliminary research on that. It's been done on animals in terms of decreasing cancer, but he's actually running trials in Italy now on people. So the goal is to balance blood sugar and energy, and we have to figure out what's the meal frequency for you, what works for you. Enjoy appropriate portions. We really want to avoid portion distortion, which seems to be part of the standard American diet, is that we overeat. We just eat way too much food, and especially eating way too much food at one time, what that does is increases your glucose and increases your insulin level, and that's exactly what we don't want for cancer, because cancer will gobble up that glucose because it's so much insulin around that it facilitates glucose getting in the cell. So we have to look at your portions, and we'll talk a little bit more about what makes up a healthy plate. In fact, you can see up here, a healthy plate is mostly non-starchy veggies and 25%, I don't know how to get rid of that box, 25% protein and 25% starch about, and we'll talk more about that. So we have to figure out what are the portions for you. And I tell people, if you think your portions are too big, slowly start decreasing your portions. And if you're worried about being hungry, fill up with some good veggies, some extra celery and some extra salad greens. And it can take some time to actually figure out what is the good portion for you. But again, it's optimizing blood sugar and optimizing energy. And these have a direct cancer fighting. We're talking about what's a cancer fighting meal plan. And then eat mostly plants, right? So that means plant focused, not necessarily plant based. So plant focused means mostly plants, veggies, whole grains, fruit, beans, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, so much to choose from. This is where the real cancer fighting mojo is. And does that mean you can't have animal foods? Absolutely not. If you enjoy animal foods, have animal foods. The rule I like to give for that is smaller amounts of animal foods. They're so nutrient dense, you don't need so much, but higher quality. And this is where it gets tricky, because the large scale factory farms are not really good quality. And this is where we get into hormone concerns. So it's high quality, smaller amounts. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So eating well is self-love. It's making a choice. So are you going to have the blueberries, maybe with a little yogurt, or are you going to have the potato chips and a Diet Coke, right? Like, it's about self-love and making that choice and making that decision. And once you make a commitment to eating healthier and you start to feel better, then all of a sudden you really lose your desire for a lot of the foods that maybe you used to eat before. And it can be a little tricky because the food industry makes processed foods addicting. And so sometimes it's hard to cut back, say, on sugar and that. But this is where we take baby steps towards eating well and are part of our self-care plan. So what is a cancer fighting meal? Trying to get rid of that box. Do you guys see that box up there? And there's no like little, how there's like a little box to shut it down? I don't see that. It just says move it away, but I don't know how to do that. So what's a cancer fighting meal? What's a cancer fighting diet? Nutrient rich. So every time you're going to take a bite of something, hey, what am I getting here, right? Because if you're eating an Oreo cookie or, maybe you don't want to think about this. Well, then it's kind of like mindless eating, right? So is it nutrient rich? Am I going to get some real nutrient goodies? Is it made from whole foods, from minimal processing? Does it provide macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrates? Is it rich in micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, plant nutrients? Guess what? These are the guys that are actually studied the most for what actually has a direct effect on cancer, downplaying tumor promoting genes, right? Is it plant focused? Is it mostly plants? So this is a salad that I made and added leafy greens and some tomatoes, and I added toasted pecans. And if you notice, I put in some artichoke hearts because I thought, let's just add in some artichoke hearts. It gave it substance and also gave a tremendous amount of fiber. So I always keep a can of artichoke hearts. And right now I'm, kind of keeping my shopping list because I don't go to the grocery store very often. And the artichoke hearts seem to really be yummy in a salad. So plant-focused meals. What's a plant-focused meal? Well, it includes veggies, fruit, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices. Like, for example, these are wraps. So wraps are one of my favorite things to do, and I'll use a lettuce leaf. Yesterday, I was on the go, actually went for a walk on the beach with a friend, a socially distanced walk. And for lunch, I had a lettuce leaf, romaine lettuce leaf, and hummus, and smoked salmon, and rolled it up. And then I had that, as a socially distanced little snack on the beach. So I get creative with my wraps, if you would. And so using lettuce as a wrap can be very helpful. So keep meals simple. This is like, do the best that you can, depending on where you are, right? If you're in treatment and you're not feeling well, or you have low energy, or you don't like to cook, keep the meals simple. Try for 3 meals a day, even if it's just a few bites. And this is for those of you who may be currently in treatment. I'm not sure if any of you are, or maybe you're struggling a little bit. If you are, keep it simple. This is a short time. You will be back. So these are some examples: banana and peanut butter, crackers and hummus, chopped red pepper and hummus, egg and toast, yogurt and berries. This could be a meal, a protein drink, a box protein drink, or maybe you make a protein smoothie. A box protein drink, there's, I like Orgain. I don't really like Boost or Ensure. You want to avoid corn syrup. Oatmeal with cinnamon. So I find a lot of times people feel, oh my gosh, I need to have these cancer fighting foods, but I don't feel so well. And let's say relax, do the best that you can and have something, even if it's just a few bites, to keep your blood sugar balanced. And then when you're feeling better, we can start to really rock and roll with our cancer fighting strategies. Always keep your go-to foods on hand in the pantry, in the refrigerator, and in the freezer so that you can make quick backup meals. And here's some examples of things to keep around to make meals with, an anytime meal: eggs, soups, whether in cans or boxes, frozen, bread, or if maybe you've made a soup and you freeze it, crackers, tortillas, carrots, celery, cabbage, apples, banana. So all these that I have listed, including dark chocolate almonds, all of these that I have listed, you can make a meal. And they're all things that you can have in your shopping list and just keep as a quick meal, and you're getting good nutrition. The dark chocolate almonds, if you're good, you can limit it to like 6 as a serving size, go for it. It's high in magnesium, it's got protein, calcium, it's lovely. But if you say, oh, I can't really limit it to 6, it turns into more like 12 or 20 or 30, and then it's like, oh no, you're a junkie. So maybe we need to hold off on that, right? Unless you can do some sort of portion control, right? In our mindful eating. What if you hate to shop and cook? It's like, I just don't feel like shopping and cooking. Or I had an older client, a woman in her 80s, and I was talking about making things, and she goes, oh, honey, I've cooked meals for my family forever. I am done. I am just so glad that I can go to the store and I can buy these healthy frozen dinners. It's great for me. And so I had to honor that. I went, wow, I hear you. Okay, but we're also managing cancer. So what can we do? Well, we can take that frozen entree. How about we add some salad greens? Or how about we add some spices? Or like, what can we do that I just want to increase your, so you increase your cancer fighting nutrients that are coming in. So maybe we could add a little bit of steamed or sauteed broccoli, so we don't have to cook a whole meal. And she was very open to that, right? So it was like baby steps, right? Set positive intention, prep one meal a day. A meal is boiling an egg and making some toast, right? Maybe you want to have some side of greens or leftover sauteed spinach or something, but keeping it simple. Veggies or fruit, like if oatmeal, you're going to have fruit and not veggies. A protein, a starch, some fat, and spices. So it's basically making a meal with what you have, right? Some veggies, some protein, some starch, some fat, and some spices. And so your proportions on your plate would be mostly non-starchy veggies, a little bit of fruit, and 25% of protein. It's about the size of the palm of your hand. Say it's a chicken breast, or it's a deck of cards sometimes from salmon or some other kind of fish, or maybe you want to have tofu, or maybe you're having beans or mushrooms. And then 25% of carbohydrates, whether it's bread, brown rice, lentils, or beans. And then our fat is really important. Our olives, our olive oil, we'll talk more about that. And then add some spices, again, just to give flavor, support digestion, and also to add extra cancer fighting power. So a healthy plate is going to be about 50% of non-starchy veggies. So non-starchy, what are starchy veggies? Those are like potatoes, carrots, beets. The non-starchy ones that grow above the ground, broccoli, green beans, celery, asparagus, and there's so many of them. And that's bulk of your plate, all right? Could be even more. So this would be, example, this would be my non-starchy veggies. I might have broccoli, I might have cauliflower and green beans. Then I might have another whole plate of salad, because salad takes up a lot of space, but it's not as nutrient dense. We need a lot more of it. So this will typically be a plate, and we can add on to a salad if you want. Some starch, example of starches would be potato, sweet potato. Potato is wonderful food. It's got high fiber. It's a good starch that feeds the good bacteria. Good bacteria eat starch and they make compounds that actually are very beneficial for us. Wild rice is a really good choice. It's more protein than a brown rice. It's actually more of a seed than a grain, more friendlier on blood sugar. If you are making brown rice, you could add some lentils. So for example, you could have 3/4 cup of brown rice, 1/4 cup of lentils. They have the exact same cooking time, and you could cook them in broth. So you're adding nutrition to your current meal. Your lentils are going to give you a lot more fiber, a lot more of nutritive minerals. Quinoa is another high protein grain. Millet, oats, whole grain breads, and mushrooms actually, mushrooms can provide some starch, and they also can provide some protein. And the thing about mushrooms is they're very immune enhancing. And the thing about mushrooms, though, is they have to be cooked because they're much too hard to digest. And they should be organic because they are grown in compost and they often can be contaminated. So cooking your mushrooms. So back in the day when you were going to a salad bar, you would want to avoid raw mushrooms. So you still want to avoid raw mushrooms. You want to cook them. Mushrooms are amazingly immune enhancing as well. We adding mushroom powders to smoothies and tea to help boost our immune system. And then protein, organic animal foods. Remember, say less animal foods, but high quality grass-fed beef, for example. Fish, cold water fish is wonderful. Beans are a great source of protein. So you can get all the protein you need from a vegetarian diet. Depending on where you're at on your cancer journey and what your needs are. And mushrooms do give you a little protein. And healthy fat is really necessary to nourish the nervous system and to absorb fat-soluble vitamins and to absorb calcium. And olives are one of my favorite. Avocado. So, and then we would include some fruit in between meals, especially this time of the year. There's so much wonderful fruit growing right now. So this is the time of the year we're typically eating more fruit than we usually eat. So we're talking about veggies, 10 half-cup servings a day. When we're managing cancer, fruit, it's typically 3 to 4 pieces a day, and vary it depending on what's going. Herbs and spices. Always add your cultured food. So I gave you a recipe for cashew yogurt that is so simple, or just have regular yogurt. Greek yogurt's going to give you a pretty good amount of protein, but yogurt is going to give you protein, calcium. You want it to be organic. You want it to be grass-fed, because dairy products, if it's coming from a cow, they could give that animal hormones. You don't want to be getting hormones, particularly if you're managing a hormone-driven cancer. So choosing organic will ensure you don't have bovine stimulating hormone in there. Grass-fed means it's higher quality. The animals are not given soy, not given corn, which is not a diet for them. So that yogurt, and it will have live culture. And for most people, having small amounts of a high quality yogurt, that amount of dairy in your diet is fine. There are sometimes concerns about dairy in the diet with cancer, because dairy can have, well, first of all, it's hormones if it's commercial. But even if it's not commercial, there are growth factors and insulin-like growth factors. So, for example, most doctors will warn against drinking a lot of milk because of the dairy connection, the growth factors. If you think about it, milk is given to babies so they grow. But small amounts of cultured yogurt is fine for most people, unless you have a casein allergy, meaning you have yogurt or you have dairy and you react to the casein. The only way you know that for sure is giving it up completely for about a month and then adding it back in and see what happens. So for example, I have that. I gave up dairy and gluten when I first started studying nutrition, and I lost 10 pounds. And I thought, oh my goodness, which I needed to do. And I says, what's up with that? Don't tell me I have a gluten dairy allergy. I love cheese. When I gave up cheese, I felt so much better, right? How did I find that out? I had to give it up. I felt better. I added it back in. I felt worse. Now there's cheese and there's cheese. So there's cheese that you get, say, on a commercial pizza, and that's going to have hormones, and the animals are probably given soy and corn, and that's an inflammatory. It's just too bad that they're not quality. And so having small amounts of a goat cheese could, say, be fine for you, depending on whether you have a casein allergy. The only thing you can do is try it. And then our booster foods, having apple cider vinegar with your meal, a tablespoon in a cup can boost your digestion. Adding your sea vegetables, your seaweed. I'll take seaweed dried and rinse it and add it to a soup or add it to a salad. Gives you extra minerals, also gives you extra iodine, which they're finding iodine deficiency is connected to a higher risk for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and also cysts. But iodine is one of those funky kind of nutrients you don't want to take like an iodine supplement. You want to get it from food. And we find fish, shellfish, and sea vegetables are a good way to get in that iodine. There's actually a guy in Santa Cruz. It's called, oh gosh, I forget. I think it's called, I'll have to send you the link. I want to say Sea Odyssey. I used to go to the farmer's market in Santa Cruz all the time, and now I'm not doing that. So I have to go online and, check out this guy and say, hey, if you want to get sea vegetables into your diet, what's a good source? And this guy, he has a website where I can't remember the name. So I want a note for myself to shoot you an email about, hey, what's a good source for sea vegetables? So it'd be a good way to mineralize adding sea vegetables to your diet. So keep a shopping list during this time when shopping is an adventure, right? We plan. So do you have some protein? What are your sources of protein? What are your veggies? What are your fruit? If you're shopping, these are options, or if you're giving someone else a shopping list, you have to, and you might want to say, hey, also get what looks good in the store. Or if they're going to, I don't know if farmers markets are open where you guys are. So eggs are a great source of protein. Great, and I'm not worried about cholesterol. It is really overplayed. For the majority of the people, having eggs in the diet is not going to cause your cholesterol to go up by having a whole bunch of starch grains and a whole bunch of breads and pastas and white rice. That'll make your cholesterol go up. So there's a lot of misinformation about cholesterol. Eggs are wonderful, really high source of choline for the brain. The yolk is the most nutritious part. Pastured eggs would be a good choice. The chickens have the opportunity to roam in the dirt and dust themselves. See, when I say high quality, I'm always thinking about how that animal is living, right? So if the animals are in these factory farms, that's not with the lights on all the time, and that's just not really good. Zucchinis up here because it's zucchini time. Tomatoes up here because it's tomato time. So you do need to plug into the season, enjoy what the earth is offering you at the time. I put mushrooms under veggies, but they're not really veggies. They're their own wonderful kingdom. They're just incredible food. And then fruit, this is such an amazing time, like berries, nectarines, plums, watermelon. Apples are even being harvested now. So this is just such a wonderful time to be enjoying fruit. And one thing to do is diversify. You don't want to get stuck eating the same things all the time. Because diversified plant foods cause a diversified gut bacteria. And gut bacteria keep your immune system strong and keep you healthy. And then for starches, here are some of your choices. What do you like? Sweet potatoes are one of my favorite. I like to bake a bunch of sweet potatoes. I put it on toast with an egg. It was kind of like a little change in the theme of avocado, egg and toast. I decided to do sweet potato. That worked for me. Lentils would be wonderful. Fat, olives and olive oil, nuts and seeds. Hemp hearts is what I've been putting in my granola. So I have a bowl of granola, and I use a non-grain granola. I don't use any grain, they're mostly nuts and seeds, and I add my own flax, I add hemp hearts, I add coconut, and then I add some almond milk. Yeah. And then spices, spice it up. Garlic's really important, especially if somebody's on a aromatase inhibitor to an estrogen blocking drug. They can sometimes cause clotting problems in some people. And garlic is one of those foods that keeps your blood flowing very, very smoothly. But what spices do you like? So when I have granola in the morning, or if I make oatmeal in the morning, I put cinnamon and sometimes cardamom in it. And they're going to get a lot of extra nutrition that way. So what's in season that you guys are liking, right? So this is where when we're together, we can have a wonderful discussion about, well, I'm growing this and I'm getting that. So kale, I grow kale in my garden and I plant it in the spring and it just goes on forever. So kale, that's why I gave you a couple of recipes for kale if you like it. Kale can be a little bit tough. So if you get the mature kale, you strip it from its stem, chop it up, wash it, and then you can massage an olive oil dressing. It'll break it down more. Kale is one of those cruciferous vegetables, high in cancer-fighting glucosinolates. But if you don't like kale, no problem. There's collard greens, there are lots of others, broccoli, there's watercress, there's arugula. Lots of options for you. And of course, berries. Berries absolutely have to be organic, right? Because you just can't get out the methyl bromide or the methyl iodide that's in there. So always choose broccoli. I mean, strawberries and spinach are the two most, the crops that have the highest percentage and concentration, highest concentration and highest amount of pesticides. EWG.org will list the dirty dozen, and spinach and strawberries seem to sort of rotate as to who's on top. You just go organic as much as you can without being crazy about it, but for sure strawberries and spinach. And then watermelon, I'm just loving watermelon right now. So refreshing. And it's so perfect that, you know, these plants have co-evolved with us. They were around for thousands of years. And I'm reading this cool book called Entangled Life that talks about the relationship of fungi to plants and how the amount of fungi that is in the dirt that's interconnected to the plants is actually going to determine the concentration of nutrients in the plants and the vegetables. Fascinating. It's this beautiful, they call it wood wide web. And this is another reason to go organic, because non-organic strawberries, for example, they'll use fungicide. Well, there goes that web, right? We don't have the fungi to help get the nutrients from the strawberries. And the soil, we don't have the good bacteria. So plants give us so much. So this watermelon gives us fiber. I know people say, oh, watermelon has sugar, but yeah, but it's loaded with fiber. So we have this watermelon, it gives us lycopene, it gives us fiber, it gives us vitamin C, it gives us vitamin A. It shares with us and we get all of these goodies. And when these plants are out in the sun being exposed to ultraviolet rays, they make antioxidants to protect themselves from the sun's rays. And when we very appreciatively pick these plants that these plants are sharing with us, we take in those antioxidants and they help us heal. So you have a good thing going with plants. And this is why a plant-based diet, a plant-focused diet, is a more health-promoting plants. It's hooking in with our plants, our tomatoes, our peaches. Just wonderful. Zucchini. So I hope you're enjoying. For zucchini, I like to just cut them in half longitudinally and then put olive oil and spices and put them on a grill. And then I'll grill some salmon, I'll grill some chicken, and just lovely. Or even the zucchini itself with some mushrooms, or that could be my main dish. And then I could have some cauliflower rice. So making vegetables your main dish is a good plan, especially this time of the year. So here's a recipe for tomato basil soup. This is actually a link to a recipe for tomato basil soup, which is another way to, we find that cooking the tomatoes activates the lycopene. And so you can roast these tomatoes and try making it yourself. Or you say, you know what, I just not up for that right now. You can try a recipe hack and just get a boxed tomato soup and add to it, right? Because you feel, oh, this is kind of daunting starting to make something from scratch. If you want to, because cooking is healing, but maybe you're not feeling so great or you got a time thing going on. Okay, in my cabinet, in my stash, my pantry, I have boxes of organic tomato soup, and I'm going to pour in a pan and I'm going to add some fresh tomatoes. I'm going to add some broth. I'm going to add some fresh basil or dried herbs, dried Italian seasoning. And then when I heat it up, I'm going to garnish with olive oil. Olive oil is cancer fighting. Who knew? Good quality olive oil, kind of like the olives that grow up where you guys are. California makes wonderful olives, grows olives. A drizzle of cream. So one chopped pumpkin seeds. It's important to add a little bit of fat to these veggie-based dishes because the added fat is going to help you absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K. We absorb them better when we take them in with some fat. So a drizzle of olive oil, a little bit of a cream, or some nuts, we're good. And then maybe some chopped garlic if you like. Maybe some chopped parsley. Parsley is a huge cancer-fighting food. It's loaded in apigene, and who knew? Chive, cilantro. So how can you take a boxed tomato soup and make it better? So cancer-fighting veggies enjoy them as a main, as raw, as a snack, in a salad, in a wrap, in a juice, in a smoothie, as a side, as a main course, in popsicles, right? So I'm working on a recipe of actually adding blended greens as part of a popsicle with some yogurt and some melons, you know, and just have fun with your popsicle. You can get those silicone type things, really nice. So why are we doing all this? This are all of the goodies that we're going to get. I like to think about the compounds in nutrients as being cell protectors and cell regulators. Cancer is a disease of dysregulation. Cancer cells just go wild, right? And we know that compounds in food actually can help prevent this dysregulation, and even cooler, they can take these dysregulated cells and kind of bring them back into the fold. There's no pharmaceutical that can do that, right? So you want to have a diverse amount of veggies, fruits, so you maximize, you get a diverse amount of all these goodies. Over 25,000 identified cancer-fighting phytonutrients in plant foods. They help with cell communication, cell regulation, cell protection, DNA repair, immune strength, estrogen clearance, like cruciferous veggies. Having broccoli helps you clear excess estrogen, as does cabbage. So in terms of managing estrogen-driven cancer, we always want to look at how are we getting rid of excess estrogen, getting rid of the excreting it. Well, we know that having cruciferous veggies helps that. So studies are all over the place. Women who eat a high amount of fruits and veggies each day have a lower risk of breast cancer compared to those who don't. So the other bugaboo is cancer stem cells. So these are the guys, you know, anytime there's a tumor, it's a mix of cell types. Not all cells in a cancer tumor are the same. And the ones that are rapidly growing, those are the ones that are going to respond really well to chemo, really well to radiation. Well, we know there's always a subset of cancer cells called cancer stem cells that aren't affected or killed off by chemo. And but the cool part is that the compounds in some of our vegetables, in our resveratrol that's in grapes, so eating grapes helps kill cancer stem cells. Eating broccoli or other crucifer veggies, drinking green tea, right? You can drink green tea, but getting a good green tea. So this raises a point of quality. So if you go to Trader Joe's and you get a green tea bag, do you think you're going to get the same level of EGCG than if you order organic loose green tea, right? So I order my green tea from Mountain Rose Herbs, right? And it's organic. I like jasmine. I order organic loose green tea and I brew it up. And then I know that, wow, I'm maximizing my EGCG. Tomatoes. So tomatoes is in making your tomato basil soup, making a gazpacho, cooking the tomatoes like in a salsa or a tomato sauce, they find actually has more of the lycopene. Black cumin seed, you might not be familiar with that one. I like to put black cumin seed oil in my salad dressing. It's very high in a well-studied anti-cancer agent called thymiquinone. You get it online. Black cumin seeds, it's very popular all over the world. I add like a teaspoon to my salad dressing every time I make a salad dressing. Luteolin, very high in chamomile, peppers, celery, pomegranate. It'll be pomegranate season pretty soon. This is also amazing nutritive compound, curcumin and black piperin. So these are just to let you know, I'm not making this stuff up. Zucchini, what to do with summer zucchini? Well, in Los Gatos in the Christmas parade, they saved summer zucchini and they marched around with it. That's how weird we are. What can you not do with zucchini would be a better question, right? So you guys can tell me, this is what I do with a gazillion amount of zucchini that I'm getting, right? What's the weirdest thing we can do? I made zucchini patties the other day. I gave you a recipe for, oh, I like to take zucchini and peel off the outer and then peel it. And then that's my pasta. And then I just cook it in a little bit of oil. And then I pour some pesto or marinara sauce on it. So these are ideas for what to do with all the zucchini. So making a simple meal, for example. So I often hear people get really stressed. It's like, I feel so much pressure about, oh gosh, I have to make this fancy cancer fighting meal. And it's like, no, 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 just chill out. Just go with good quality ingredients. You're good. So scrambled eggs and spinach. How would you make that even better? Think color, add some salsa, right? Add a little bit of turmeric. That's a cancer fighting meal. So you relax a little bit and say, I'm going to do the best I can, but I want it to taste good and I want it to be easy. So maybe I'll do like a veggie frittata, saute a bunch of veggies, including zucchini, put in some mushrooms, put in some turmeric, put in some garlic, and then beat some eggs, put it together in a pan, let it solidify. I've got a veggie frittata. That's a cancer fighting meal, right? Toast with avocado or sweet potato and egg. How could we make that better? Put some turmeric on it. A tofu veggie mushroom stir fry. Add a bunch of greens. Kale salad. Maybe you don't like kale. Add some baby kale to your salad greens. Good way to get baby kale in. Tomato basil soup. A Buddha bowl. That means just a nice nutritive bowl. And add some pre-cooked greens like quinoa. If I'm making quinoa, I usually have enough for the next day or two. I'll put a hard-boiled egg. I'll put some salad greens. I'll put some beans, squirt some lemon or olive oil. I've got a Buddha bowl, all right? A lettuce hummus veggie wrap. That's what I had yesterday. And I put some, it wasn't hummus. Yeah, I did. I did spicy hummus and a lettuce, and I added some smoked salmon. It was delicious. And I had some olives on the side. A bean salsa burrito. How could we make that better? Add some greens, add some cilantro. Yeah, and the other thing you could do with all of these, add a couple of tablespoons or a quarter cup or even a cup of sauerkraut, right? So sauerkraut or cultured vegetables, so many types of cultured vegetables right now. That's going to help you digest. It's going to give you probiotic bacteria. It's going to give you digestive enzymes. So check out all the different sauerkrauts and have them as a condiment with your meal. Make a simple meal. These are some ideas, right? I'm watching my time now. It's 2 o'clock, so I probably will go a little over. This is an example of a Buddha bowl or a nourished bowl. If you have all these things kind of ready to go, then you put them together, put a dollop of hummus, drizzle of olive oil and lemon, and you're good. Can use the same ingredients and wrap it up. And you can make a soup. Back in the day when we were going out to work in that, I would make salads in a mason jar. So this is a summer salad. I will say about a summer salad is having a wide mouth bowl is great because you can see it. You start digesting with your eyes. And so this bowl, you can add all of your ingredients in its lovely presentation. I like a white bowl. You could use a wooden bowl. And then get creative with your summer salads. These are some options. And this time of the year, you could add some berries. This is a great time of the year. Have fun. Like I added arugula hearts and hemp hearts. So I'm just having fun and I'm swapping it around. So it's not like, oh, ho hum, it's salad. You know, have like oh, wow, it's salad, you know, it's salad time. And these are all the things that you can add in. Sliced beets would be awesome to add in. Hard-boiled egg, some shrimp. Maybe you got these things frozen, ready to go. Always adding beans will add nutrition and fiber. Making your own dressing, so easy. Just use the juice of a lemon or some olive oil and balsamic. Or maybe you want to get fancy and do a strawberry infused vinaigrette. That's really fun to do this time of the year. So here's a recipe for a salad dressing. Drizzle the olive oil in slowly at the end. You notice I put in black cumin seed oil for that added thymiquinone. Has a little bit of a funky taste, so don't do too much of it. And you do need to get that organic online. But Have fun with your salad dressings. This is the time of the year that a Mediterranean salad with only 3 ingredients, tomatoes, cucumbers, and red onions, and probably 4 just in olive oil. If you needed more, you could add some mint and some feta or some olives for a complete meal. And this is so great when tomatoes are in season. And this looks beautiful in that large white, wide mouth white bowl as well. Olive oil and cancer prevention. This is why the Mediterranean diet has a lower incidence of cancer and cardiovascular disease. A lot of cancer fighting agents in olive oil. When you are picking olive oil, go for unfiltered or unrefined in a dark glass bottle. Know who the vendor is. Like I know up in that area where you guys are, or maybe it's further Corning. I'm not sure where that is. Maybe that's further north than you guys, northeast. California is a source of olives. So olives, important part of the Mediterranean diet. Oh, so when I was doing some research to get, okay, where are the studies for this? And I just did a quick Google search first, and I said olive oil, and look what came up, olive oil. Now I'm really dating myself, right? I don't know how many of you people remember olive oil and Popeye, but I saw this and I thought, check it out. Olive oil is like punching out cancer, right? So I thought this was kind of fun, but lots and lots of data on the effectiveness, the health promoting factors of olive oil. What kind of olive oil? Extra virgin, cold pressed, unfiltered, dark glass bottle. Can you cook with olive oil? Absolutely. Just don't let it smoke, right? You cook small things. So that means you get your pan or your pot, heat it for about a minute, add olive oil for about a minute, then add your food. That heated olive oil, once you add the food, it's going to raise the smoke point. It won't smoke. Don't ever smoke in oil, right? If you have to cook something that requires high heat for longer time, then you go to a saturated fat, like a coconut oil or lard or something like that. And then here's some ideas for salads. So putting some radishes, look how beautiful that is. Those are watermelon radishes. Adding some beans to your salad. Digestion is key. If you're having digestive issues, we need to figure that out, because all the wonderful food that you're taking in, you might not be digesting, absorbing, and assimilating those nutrients. So we need to figure out a lot of individualization. In general, an apple cider vinegar drink, ginger, some people need enzymes, and cultured foods, and also being relaxed. And we spoke about breathing before your meal. And some people may need some extra support. Immune strength. So this is where I added these slides on at the end, just because of this COVID-19 challenge that we have going on. So we won't spend much time, because you can look at this on your own. Basically increasing your health to decrease risk of disease, being hydrated, get that immune, that IgA going on, be nourished, be rested, get adequate sleep. This is where the immune function is the strongest. Immune surveillance is strong when we sleep. Get daily exercise that is appropriate. And then being calm, because stress depletes the immune system. And these are foods that we need to have adequate protein. Zinc is a major, major player. And here's foods that are high in zinc. And zinc, if you are vegetarian or vegan and not doing animal products, you're a higher risk for zinc deficiency. And even if you're not, zinc is so important, and most people are deficient. Zinc is really important for fighting cancer. It tends to activate T cells, a major component of how we fight cancer and how we fight viruses. We oftentimes can't get in enough zinc that we need, so I often recommend taking zinc as a supplement. Raw or sprouted is going to be more absorbable. And then gut flora for immunity, probiotic foods, your yogurt or kefir, sauerkraut with meals. Kimchi is the same as sauerkraut. Kombucha. Prebiotic foods are basically plant foods that the gut flora eat, and that's what helps them make short chain fatty acids and other compounds that boost our immunity. So gut flora, the gut is really important. There's actually studies showing that depending on the gut flora can determine lung health. Pretty cool. Gut flora and cancer, really, really important. So if you are going to take supplements, always check with your medical doctor before taking it. Don't know what your condition or treatment or medications are. You don't want interactions. Food-based zinc is really important. Vitamin D is critical. People with low vitamin D, higher risk for respiratory infections, higher risk for everything, including cancer. Vitamin C with bioflavonoids extra. A lot of times if people feel like they're getting sick, I had a couple of clients call me up, I feel like I'm getting a cold. Oh my God, is it COVID? What am I supposed to do? I says, well, let's just go into let's ramp up our immune system. So take a little extra vitamin C, a little extra D, zinc until you feel better. And then mushroom blends can be really important. I'll often use a powder, like a 5 Defenders from realmushrooms.com, and I put that in my tea or coffee. Melatonin, who knew? Protective against cancer and viruses. Melatonin is more than sleep regulation. It's a potent antioxidant, potent immune stimulant, and it synergizes with cancer treatment, but doesn't interfere with cancer treatment. So how much melatonin should you take? It's individual. Generally, remember, you make your own melatonin. So if you're going to take melatonin at bedtime, it's somewhere around 3, 5, maybe 10. Some people say 20. If you're going to get into very high doses, you need to work with a practitioner. So low melatonin associated with higher risk for cancer, and it actually protective against viruses. So these are some resources for you, and I went a little bit over. So let's entertain some of your questions. Marilyn.
Yeah, well, we have one question so far, and that is what to look for in a zinc supplement.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I can tell you my favorite. There's actually differing opinions with this. My favorite is to get a naturalized, that means a food-based zinc, because I think it will be better absorbed. And some people claim that zinc picolinate is fine, and there's actually data to show that zinc picolinate, high zinc level, that zinc levels were able to go up when people were taking zinc picolinate. And that they actually have studies showing that it caused an increase in T cells, which is immune cells that's going to help you fight viruses and also help fight respiratory viruses. The dose is going to be anywhere from 20 to say 30 milligrams. I just like food-based. So there's over-the-counter, there's Mega Foods, MEGA, and then online there's Natura, NATURA health products, and they make a naturalized zinc. You know, when you're managing cancer, I often recommend people actually ask their doctor to test their zinc levels. Test the zinc, copper, and ceruloplasmin. So another function of zinc besides immune strength is balancing out copper, and cancer uses copper. So we never want people's copper levels to be high and zinc levels to be low. And sometimes depending on those values, it'll guide what dose, like we may need to take zinc a couple of times a day. Or for example, people who are actively fighting a respiratory infection, they're taking more than just 20 milligrams a day. They're taking 20 milligrams like 3 times a day. So and zinc can sometimes cause a little bit of nausea and stomach upset, but if it's food-based, it's not going to do that. So you can get like one by Natura or Mega Foods or something. Good question. Yeah.
This is a good one because and I'll do these in a random order here. So I'm being treated for gut issues and have trouble digesting green leafy vegetables.
Right.
Any recommendations for alternatives?
Yeah, so you can just make a soup, and if this works for you, like this is a perfect example of like taking a power of greens like spinach, leafy kale and collards, chopping it small and cooking it, if that works for you. So a soup, so you can cook it and then you could blend it up, right? So you're getting, it seems like the fiber may be what's the problem. So you still want to get the goodies. So cooking it and then blending it. And you can try cooking it, chop small, and especially cooked in a liquid, cooked in a bone broth. And if that doesn't work, it's still, you can still see the pieces of them, and try blending them. So you can make an immune, nice soup. You can actually cook mushrooms that way too. Blend everything up. That's what I would try. It's probably the fiber that's giving you the challenge. So you'll be getting all of the nutrients. You just won't be getting so much fiber. So I hope that will work for you.
Okay, we got a couple more questions here. What type of multivitamin to take post-treatment? And of course, you're probably going to say it depends, but go ahead.
Yeah, multivitamin mineral is a little tricky. First of all, always check with your doctor to see if it's a good idea for you to take a multivitamin mineral, okay? Because I don't know what's going on with you. And in some cases, multivitamin minerals are contraindicated, right? So my preference is to go food-based, right? So food-based, you'll find they have lower concentrations of the nutrients, but they're more bioavailable, so, and more absorbable. So food-based are things like brands such as Mega, M-E-G-A Foods, Innate Formulas, I-N-N-A-T-E Formulas. Who else is food-based? I think some of those Alive or Rainbow Light. And don't go for like a one a day, right? The one a day is only because people, that's all they want to do. You really need more than that. You know, you really need to take, it'll be something like a minimum of 2, maybe 4 a day. And so some people will combine a multivitamin mineral, high quality, food-based, organic. And if you need a bone support, because you're taking estrogen blocking medication, you'll take like a partner extra calcium magnesium. So I would look for food-based multivitamin mineral. I think that's the safest way to go, because there have been some real concerns, and high quality is another. This is not where you want to skimp, because the first thing you want to do is look at the added ingredients down at the bottom. And if it's got talc and red dye and just a bunch of awful stuff, so you start there, right? So it's really an example of you get what you pay for. You don't want to lowball a multivitamin mineral. And yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's other brands. I think Innate Formulas is one of my, oh, and the other thing is you look for age appropriate. So they'll have one for women over 40, men over 55. And so looking for an age appropriate one that's like 2 or 4 per day, that's food-based. In my opinion, that's kind of good. It's not going to substitute for the diet, right? But it's going to, and sometimes people will do green powders just to get a little bit more alkalinity, like Amazing Foods or Amazing Grass, something like that. It's organic foods. And they'll put it in like a blended drink or something, but always put the real vegetable in there too. So yeah, food-based would be the way to go, I would say.
All right, here's a couple more questions. Any concerns regarding radiation with sea vegetables?
Oh, you mean that the sea vegetables themselves have been, or is it don't take sea vegetables when you're getting radiation treatment? You're going to have to clarify the question.
Okay, so Barbara will have to clarify that. I'll go to the next one while she's typing that in. Confused about milk, then I hear this one all the time. Can I have a small glass of cow's milk? What about soy, goat's milk, yogurt, etc.?
Yeah, and I know this is a good question, and I talked about it a little bit. Small amounts of organic dairy is okay. We're not so concerned. What's small amounts? So having a glass of milk every day, I'd actually lobby for having some yogurt, having a cup of yogurt every day, because you would get the added benefit of the probiotics. You are getting quite a bit of nutrition from the milk. You're getting protein, you're getting fat, you're getting calcium, which you're not going to get from you're not going to get the same level of calcium from cashew yogurt. So it's all about quality. So if you are going to have small amount, like a cup of cow's milk a day, maybe 5 days, a week or something, it's got to be organic, and it really has to be grass fed. Right? Because if it's not grass fed, that animal is being fed soy or corn, it makes it more inflammatory, right? And casein itself can be more inflammatory. So I always lobby that small amounts of high quality, grass fed, organic, and it doesn't seem to cause a problem. You're probably fine. People I often hear, they want to have like cow's milk in their coffee, and they just like that, or they want to have cream. You want to have and I think that's fine. Having a little bit of high quality organic cream from grass-fed cows, I think is fine. As far as soy goes, soy's is interesting. They used to say that don't have soy because it could, make estrogen positive tumors go. And then that's been debunked. Actually, soy is beneficial for the majority of people. And this is real soy, not soy protein powders, not soy cheese, not processed soy. We just don't know enough about. Soy protein powders, I really would stay away from. So I think having tofu, organic, non-GMO, tempeh, miso, I'll put miso in dressing, I think that's actually fine. And what the data is showing is that it's actually beneficial, especially if it was taken in early in life and culturally, like in Asian societies. In order to get the benefit of soy, you need good gut bacteria to break it down, right? So the beneficial compound in soy is actually kind of like a pro-nutrient. It needs to be broken down into the nutrient that we can absorb and get benefit from. So small amounts of soy, like 3 times a week, is fine. Whether that's, and even having soy milk in your coffee every day, a little soy milk in your coffee, the organic, they're finding that is fine. I think that's it. You have soy milk in yogurt.
All right, here's one. I have avoided kale because I hear it interferes with thyroid meds.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Fact or fiction?
Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm not concerned about that at all. But if you are, this is really concerned if you have a low thyroid. If you've been diagnosed with low thyroid or Hashimoto's autoimmune, it may be more of a concern. So here's what the deal is. There are certain foods that have goitrogens. That means it binds iodine, so the iodine is not able to be used to make thyroid hormone. First of all, if you cook it, that's completely gone away. So if you want to have kale, if you put kale in your soup and you cook it or you saute it, that's not a problem. So the kale would be, well, what if I make that raw salad that you're talking about? Is that amount of kale going to be a problem? Having that like once, twice a week, not going to be a problem. Having it every day, for some people, they think it could have a goitrogenic effect, but it's kind of individual. I've not heard people really have a problem with it. But if you are concerned about it, you can cook. That's for all your cruciferous vegetables. And there's a couple of other foods. I think millet, they're goitrogens. So my opinion is, I don't think it's as big of an issue as everybody's making it. But if you've got it in your head that it's an issue, the way you can get around that is enjoy your cruciferous veggies cooked. Okay.
Thank you, Nancy. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the sea vegetables. Are sea vegetables containing radiation from the ocean? Yeah. So is there any concern there?
Is there any concern? I know that's a really good question, especially after, that latest thing in Japan that happened years ago. And from what I can determine, no. From what I can determine, one of the strengths of sea vegetables is they are incredible detoxifiers. They themselves break things down. They are just incredible vegetables that have co-evolved to be these detoxifiers. So to the best of my knowledge, I'm not concerned about it. You know what, that would be a great question for, can't remember his name. This is a guy, he sold in the Santa Cruz Farmers Market, and he harvests the sea vegetables himself. He's actually putting them in pills as well as selling them in little packages. And that would be a good question, but we've talked about this, and I'm not concerned about it, you know, because of their ability to just detoxify. I mean, yeah, I'm personally not concerned, but I understand. Yeah. And you're doing small amounts of them. You don't do a lot of sea veggies. They're expensive. Yeah. Unless you want to harvest your own. Go up to Mendocino and harvest kelp. That would be fun. Yeah.
That is all the questions I have so far. I did have one that came up. I saw you had protein powder on the list, and there are so many varieties of protein powder. Whey powder, soy powder, pea protein powder, blah, blah, blah. Is there a recommendation for the right type of protein powder to look for?
And it depends on what your goal is. You know, if you really need to gain weight, put on lean muscle mass, that's a whey protein powder. If whey protein powder is very bioavailable, more absorbable, so whey protein powder the whey is going to be a more bioavailable source of protein than, say, pea protein, or the other proteins. The only thing you've got to think about whey is make sure you're okay with it. Right, so even people who have like dairy allergies, they seem to be okay with whey, but I always tell people before you introduce a food, do a little test, because if you think about it, a protein powder is pretty concentrated. So you get a concentrated whey protein powder, do a little test, have it in a little bit of water or almond milk that you know you're okay with, and have it a couple days and say, yeah, I'm cool, I didn't notice any problem. So then if you are going to get whey, what are the guidelines? So the guidelines are it has to come from grass-fed animals. So if you get goat whey, they eat everything. They're not fed hormone, they're not given hormones, and they're not fed corn and soy. So if you're going to get whey, you want to get a good source of whey. And then you want it to taste good. Like people like Terrace, Teras. So grass-fed, and also unheated. So again, it's an animal product, so very high quality. The other thing about whey that's really good is it's really good to boost the immune system. So it is a natural source of so many things. It's a natural source of lactoferrin, which helps support iron and minerals. It's a natural source of glutamine. So whey protein is a natural source, bioavailable protein, you know, is the biggie. And it has immunoglobulins, which are these long chains of proteins that boost your immune system. So that's another point. If you're making a blended drink and you're using a whey powder, it is recommended not to blend the heck out of the whey. So blend all your stuff, your berries, your nuts, whatever you're putting in there. Then at the end, add your whey protein, and just very, very gently, because those immunoglobulins, you want to keep them intact. If you can't do whey, then you can go with a plant-based. Again, look for high quality, like organic, warrior proteins, a pretty good one. There's a lot of plant-based ones if you want to, but whey, you're going to get more mileage out of the whey in terms of nutrition than you are out of the plant, right? It's really good for building lean muscle mass. It's good for healing the gut. I'll go with whey protein, especially if weight loss has been a concern and we need to do some weight gain, or people who are trying to lose weight and they do a protein shake do well with it as well. But so yeah, that kind of would be it. Look for high quality. And you have to be careful because of marketing hype. You know, like that's the thing about supplements and herbs. You have to be so careful. They're not regulated. You're really seeing all these marketing claims. Some companies spend way more money on marketing than they do on making the product, and they can just promise you everything. And it's, So I just want to go with kind of reputable companies. Garden of Life is a good company. Terrace is a good company. Warrior Sun, something like that. It's a good company for the plant-based. Yeah, good question. But you know, you don't have to have a protein powder. So another protein drink, and this is really for people who, you know, I have a lot of clients I'm working with who are very, very sick, you know, and they're not able to eat, but I need to get protein into them. So we'll do like a box protein drink, and we'll do Ownwyn, OWYN, or Orgain, and avoid the ones that have corn syrup. But if you are of a healthy diet and you're eating regular, and you don't need a protein powder, you know, you add some yogurt to a smoothie, or you may not need a protein powder. I think I listed that as sort of an option for someone who, when you're healing from cancer or you're going through treatment, it's important that your protein levels be adequate. And it's important that your protein levels be adequate for making immune factors. So if you look at your blood work and the total protein and albumin, if those are low, your doctor is concerned, right? So there's individuality as to how much protein you need. So an average person who's doing okay and eating well, they don't really need a protein powder. You know, they're eating an egg or they just eat a real food, you know, and get the protein the way it's supposed to be rather than in a powder. So this was just sort of an option for somebody who needed something, you know, which some of our
Additional.
Yeah.
We do have one final question. We'll do this final question and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. I do want to give Nancy, thank you so much. We would give you a round of applause, but you know, it's kind of hard. Yeah. So thank you. The final question is, what is the best way to build red blood cells?
Oh, okay. So I want to know why the red blood cells are low, right? So are the red blood cells low because of a chemo-induced bone marrow suppression? In other words, post-chemo. Are the red blood cells low because we have an anemia, you know, with low iron, right? So first you got to talk to your doctor, right? You have to say, why are my red blood cells low? Do I have an iron deficiency anemia? Do I have a B12 deficiency anemia? Or are all my counts just low secondary to chemo? In other words, to the bone marrow getting kind of beat up from chemo. So I have to differentiate, because, you know, if it's iron deficiency, we really got to be giving you iron. But if it's not iron deficiency, we don't want you to take iron, right? So overall, let's talk about building, okay? Without knowing the specifics, let's talk about overall, what's a general approach to, let's call it build blood, right? So one of my favorites here is bone broth, right? So homemade bone broth, and hopefully you're not vegan, because then, you know, homemade bone broth's probably not going to be in the plan. Bone broth with making your own bone broth is best. In other words, just getting a box bone broth is not going to be as good as making your own, or spending the money to get a ready-made bone broth that is in the freezer section by Kitchen Witch, or there's a couple of pre-made bone broths that are frozen. They're actually very good. They're a little pricey. They're like $15 for a quart. And I would say, you know, you probably want to have like a quart a day. This is why making it yourself would be wonderful. Making a soup with bone broth and adding vegetables. Other thing that's really good to build blood is organ meat, like liver, organic liver, like chicken liver or cow's liver. And hopefully you're not like crinkling your nose up going, because these organ meats are really, really important to build blood. This is what we've been doing for traditions. What I like to do with liver, it's got a weird texture, is I buy the liver and I saute onions, I saute bell peppers, and then I saute liver, and then I add some pesto sauce, right? I smother it with pesto sauce, you know. And then I like to have that over zucchini pasta or over anything, or get creative on organ meats, because organ meats are a great way to build blood. Other things like whey protein that we talked about, whey protein powder would be blood building. There's a supplement, Mega Foods. In other words, food-based by the same company, Mega, M-E-G-A, Mega Foods. They have an herbal blend called Blood Builder that has some B12, liver, I forget what all it has. I have to look at it. Blood Builder, B vitamins, really, really important. And then knowing that if it is a chemo-induced, that it's going to get better. Because here's the thing, you know, the chemo really hits fast-growing cells, of which the bone marrow is one, your hair is one, your gut lining is one. But the cancer cells will die and the normal cells will regrow and rebuild. It takes time and it takes nutrition. So building, so you do need to have complete protein at every meal. And you do need to be taking some kind of a vitamin that has some good B12. I would say like Omega Foods, you know, Whole Foods vitamin. Make sure you have enough B12. The other thing is you'd have to actually look at some labs, you know, look at your CBC, see where the MCV is. MCV, it tells you about the size of your red blood cells. If the MCV is high, that usually indicates a B12 deficiency. If the MCV is low, it usually indicates an iron deficiency. And those are things to talk to your doctor about, specifically what can I do to build blood, and knowing that it's going to come back with good nutrition. And the booster foods are the bone broth. You can sip on bone broth as a tea, whisk in a little bit of miso, makes the taste good. If you don't like the miso, you could whisk in a little nutritional yeast. Trying to think what else is blood. Then there are herbal supplements as like Botanibol by Nature as a building or an anabolic. Also, is weight good, or do we need to build weight? Do we need to look at GI function? Because we have to make sure we're absorbing the goodies, right? So without knowing the specifics, I would say bone broth, liver, and then doing your regular good sources of protein. Anytime you need to build, think protein. Protein is structure. So what are your protein? Your eggs, your fish, your poultry, if you like tofu, your beans. And then remember, in order to utilize protein, you need vitamins and minerals. And those vitamins and minerals come from veggies. So this is why having eggs with some veggies, or having a little bit of chicken with a whole bunch of veggies. And if digestion is a little challenged, then having slow cooked things, having things, a long simmered lamb stew with a whole bunch of veggies and some beans, you know, would be really, really helpful for you as well. That's what I'm thinking on the top of my head without knowing like specifics, because, you know, we don't just look at, oh, building red blood cells, what's the magic formula? We have to look at who's the person that has this and what's going on and why is this. And then from there, we work out almost like a customized plan. But I hope that that's a start for you. Those are what comes to mind. You know, probiotics are going to help your digestion and your elimination and everything, and your immune system. And they take time, but they're going to help maximize the digestion of food and the nutrient absorption and the assimilation of nutrients, so kind of taking the nutrients out of the food and getting them into the system, right? Yeah, and also make sure you're hydrated, because blood is like 80% water, right? Yeah.
Wow, wow, Nancy, my brain is full.
Okay.
I hope everyone else learned quite a bit today. It was fascinating to learn how all these different foods, even for
Yeah,
someone,
right.
I don't have cancer, but I know that these things will help me. So I hope they were helpful to our audience
Oh,
today.
yeah.
I may ask you to send a recipe for the bone broth along that we could pass on to everyone, because that sounds like a great idea. I know we have a recipe at the center, but I'm not sure that it's a bone broth one. So I will see if what that is.
Okay. Let me send you some information on the bone broth. Was there something else I was going to send
Yeah,
you?
those sea vegetables or something.
Oh, yeah. I was going to send you a link to a guy who harvests and sells sea vegetables. Okay. So I'll send you those two things and you can send them along. And
All right.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope everyone else enjoyed that today, and